All right, so we have news that Brock Purdy is scheduled to undergo surgery on his torn UCL February 22nd. We've been waiting for the date, and that date now confirms that Purdy will have a very good chance to be back for training camp, which is about 6 months from the time of his injury. They're waiting for the swelling to subside. But in the other video that I just did, I talked about Purdy's surgery plans. He's going to go to Texas to get it done by the Texas Rangers team physician. Obviously, a little bit more of a baseball injury with the UCL, but it's not Tommy John surgery based on that timeline. It is the internal brace procedure. And this just coincides with Trey Lance visiting Radio Row at the Super Bowl today and talking to Rich Eisen. And Trey Lance talked about his plans to compete with Brock Purdy for the 49ers starting job. Let's take a listen into what Trey had to say earlier today.
For it. And I'm excited to just get on the field and compete. So that's all I want an opportunity to do.
So you believe your next few months is about competing for this job?
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean,
everyone saw what Brock. Brock doesn't just come in and play that well, and I just get handed something out of the blue, and I don't expect that or want that. But I truly believe, I just want an opportunity to compete. That's all I wanted going into this offseason.
All right, and then one other thing that's been talked about, you in particular, and the 49ers, is that this team we just saw is ready to roll.
There you have it from Trey Lance himself. He's ready to compete. He wouldn't want to have it any other way. I wouldn't want it to be a situation where I'm just handed something. There have been multiple schools of thought regarding this, right? Guesses as to what the 49ers would do, how they would approach this situation. Some people saying, well, they have so much invested in Trey Lance. Obviously, he's going to be the starter. Other people saying, well, Brock Purdy was so good, way more efficient than Trey Lance was in a limited sample size. Obviously, if Purdy's healthy in time, he's going to be the QB. I think it was much more clear-cut when Purdy was still healthy. Yes, the way that Purdy played those 8-9 games to close this past season was remarkable, and I think did put him into a driver's seat for the 49ers quarterback situation, the QB1 spot to begin next season. But he tore his UCL in the final game, and now he's going to be right up against the timeline as far as being ready for training camp. They're talking about 6 months. Is it 6 months from the surgery? Is it 6 months from the time of injury? I don't think that it's a clear, firm, okay, this happened on the 22nd surgery. He's not going to be back until August 22nd. I think there's some leeway there. I think you'd probably take the median, right? The time in between the time of the injury and the time of the surgery. So I do think that the prognosis that Ian Rappaport reported today saying that Brock Purdy could be back for training camp, I do think that's one to go by. There's a really good chance that he will be ready for practices then. And I think, though, that because he is up against it time-wise and because Trey Lance does have OTAs, the entire offseason program, without Brock Purdy being a full participant, I think that gives Lance a little bit of a boost, right? It gives Lance some time to reestablish himself as that prized acquisition that the 49ers brought in after the big trade in 2021. But then Purdy will have a chance to rebut, assuming that the surgery timeline proceeds according to plan with him. This is the article that Matt Barrows and I just worked on, a newser article regarding Brock Purdy's surgery on February 22nd, by the way. I'm going to copy and paste it and put it into the chat section. So we're going to have an interesting few months. Again, Lance, he's been on the sidelines here for a while. In that Rich Eisen interview, Trey Lance actually talked about all the different things that he had as a responsibility while he was hurt. Why don't we take a listen into that part of this as well?
Like for you to watch this year play out?
It was hard. It was hard for sure. Ups and downs throughout the year. It got easier when I found my role. I went in, after probably a few weeks after my first surgery,
right?
And just talked to Kyle and was like, man, what can I do?
What was your role? What was your role?
I started with base downs. Breaking down pressures, especially once Brock started playing it. It definitely picked up, which is around the time of my second surgery, right before my second surgery. But I needed something. I needed something to feel like I was contributing. That was the hardest thing for me, was getting to that spot where I'm feeling good. I'm doing my rehab. I'm in the meetings. I'm asking the right questions, but I didn't feel like I was truly helping. When a lot of time when Jimmy was playing, and obviously Jimmy's a vet, Jimmy's done it. He played at a really very high level.
Right.
But once Brock took over, like I felt like I needed the help. So whatever it was, base down pressures, third down pressures, red zone, I just tried to help as much as I could.
Well, I'm sure you were.
So that's what Brock Purdy was filling his time with. He said that he got more busy once Brock Purdy took over because he was in charge of pressures. And I think that's going to really help Trey Lance as far as his mental preparation for the game, because young quarterbacks get lit up by pressure all the time. We saw a ton of cover zero immediately from opposition when Brock Purdy replaced Jimmy Garoppolo. Miami just lit him up with cover zero. And that's how Purdy initially proved himself, right? He beat cover zero as he got drilled by Jalen Phillips on the throw over the middle, the George Kittle, beat cover zero enough times so opponents stopped calling it so often. And because young quarterbacks, untested quarterbacks, see so many blitz packages from opponents, and because Trey Lance was in charge of diagnosing those and looking at those to help Brock Purdy while he was sidelined with injury, I think that's going to help Lance by extension moving forward in his career. You know, it's funny. JC Maxwell has a great comment here. Why are people so scared of Lance and Purdy competing? And he asks, is it insecurities? That's exactly it. Anytime there's a quarterback competition, people start saying, no, there's not actually one. Here's why this guy is better. Here's why that guy is better. Newsflash, you're not going to decide this quarterback competition. The two quarterbacks and the coaching staff are going to decide this quarterback competition. So as much as you put your head into the sand and try to deny that something's going to take place, it's not going to change the truth. Trey Lance just straight up said he's ready to compete. There's going to be a competition. And the 49ers would be idiots to not have a competition, because you have somebody that you've invested all of these picks in, and Trey Lance, who has immense physical talent, and you have somebody with a proven track record, but he's coming off an elbow surgery. He will be coming off an elbow surgery in Brock Purdy. So even if the injury situation weren't the case here, you should enter every training camp with a spirit of competition at every single position, and that includes the quarterback position. In 2021, the 49ers talked of it as a competition between Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance, and yes, they did compete, but it was obvious the whole time that Jimmy Garoppolo was going to win the competition in 2021. In 2022, there wasn't much of a competition, right? Because Jimmy Garoppolo was just working off on the side. 49ers thought they were going to trade him. He wasn't fully cleared yet to return to practice. He was really close to it at that point. And then finally, when he re-signed, Garoppolo did rejoin the team as a backup because he hadn't been with the team during training camp. Before that, even became an issue. Who could lead this offense better, Trey Lance or Jimmy Garoppolo in 2022? Trey Lance got hurt, so it naturally segued to Jimmy Garoppolo. So Garoppolo is not expected to be on the team anymore next year. You have Lance and Purdy under contract, probably a backstop veteran that's going to be signed to this team that's not going to threaten either of their two roles. And you have Lance and Purdy duke it out, and you decide what's best for the football team moving forward. The only reason to be against the sort of plan like that is if you are insecure about something. So that is a good question from JC Maxwell. Anyway, today, Trey Lance, I wouldn't want it to be a situation where I'm just handed something. Quote of the day from Trey Lance on Rich Eisen's show. We are set for a quarterback competition that's going to happen in about 6 months, and that's assuming that Brock Purdy follows the timeline that has been reported today. He's officially going to undergo surgery on February 22nd. It does not appear to be the Tommy John full reconstruction, because the report from Ian Rappaport indicated that Purdy can be back in time for training camp. So buckle up. It's going to be a very interesting offseason, but the 49ers' desired end goal of this offseason is to have both of these guys back, both Brock Purdy and Trey Lance back, ready to compete at training camp, and we will track it earnestly over the course of this season. All right, everybody, thanks for joining. Take care. More coming soon. Also, take care. Make sure you take a look at the State of the DBs article up on The Athletic. I'll talk about that in a video later today. All right, like and subscribe. We will see you shortly.